Going into 28 years later, you'd be forgiven for thinking that you're in for a bit of a brainless, fun time at the movies, another zombie horror flick. You wouldn't necessarily expect to be contemplating deep philosophical ideas, things like the true nature of humanity, or how to come to terms with death and accept the mortality of your loved ones. Well, if you didn't expect that, you might not be familiar with director Danny Boyle. Now, if we completely forget about yesterday...
Hey, dude, are you sure?
Hey, dude. He's right. That's better.
Oh man, I don't know what happened there. This guy has an incredibly impressive filmography where he has a really unique way of delving into the human psyche and what it means to be alive. 28 years later could be one of his most thematically rich films yet. There's so much you could dive into here, but in this video I'm going to attempt to explore a little bit more about how 28 years later explores the human condition, extending on the themes explored in the first two movies before diving into how this latest film poignantly explores the theme of death. 28 Days Later, the first film in the franchise, explores how human survival often comes back to our own brutal animal instincts. Kill to survive, defend yourself from predators. Sometimes you need to become the monster in order to defeat it. The film seems to be saying that you can try and hold on to noble ideals of civility, but ultimately, if you want to survive, sometimes life comes back to animal instincts. We see that through Cillian Murphy's character the most, how, by necessity, he has to become a brutal killer in order to defend the innocent. 28 Weeks Later expands on these ideas, and while not directed by Danny Boyle, further explores concepts surrounding what humanity is capable of. We see soldiers ordered to brutally gun down innocent civilians in order to prevent the spread of the virus, humanity capable of killing their own in horrific ways for the greater good. But what humanity is there left to save if you lose your soul in the process of saving them? The film seems to try and answer this by showing the other side of the spectrum, where we also see the very best of humanity through Sergeant Doyle's sacrifice. It's a beacon of hope in a world that does still seem hopeless, where the rage virus seems as if it's going to conquer all. 28 years later dives deeper into this theme of hopelessness. What do the scraps of humanity become when the fight is over? How does that conflict shape us? When hope of a return to normality has become lost, what survives? At first, as we see the island, we think that we're seeing a pocket of humanity courageously surviving and thriving as best as they can under horrible circumstances. And while this is true to some extent on the surface level, as the film goes on, we see how damaged these people actually are and how this society can actually be very representative of some of the darkest sides of human existence. When our main character Spike first goes onto the mainland with his father, we see him make his first kill of one of the infected. These infected creatures seem different to the ones that we've seen before. They're morbidly obese, they're eating worms from the dirt, they even seem to have a child with them. And even though the audience is fully aware of how dangerous the rage virus and these zombies can be, there's something about these creatures that seems different, especially how they scream when they're hit with Spike's arrow. Despite Spike's dad Jamie's jubilation at his son's first kills, the scene is enough to give us pause as an audience. Something feels off. When Spike and Jamie finally make it back safely to the island after being chased by the Alpha, we see the true underbelly of its human population. In a huge celebration, Jamie, who's now drunk, raves of his son's first kills, exaggerating their exploits on the mainland, reveling in the screams of the infected, while the rowdy, drunken crowd cheers him on. Spike, only 12 years old, is offered alcohol and bears witness to his dad beginning an affair with another woman on the island. The camera and editing feels sickening, and it all culminates in Spike throwing up outside, leaving the party that's meant to be a tribute to him and returning to his mum, who's sick in bed at home while her husband goes off with another woman. At this point in the film, to me, it seemed like in some ways the infected seemed more human than the people left on the island. These people on the island don't even question the violence and the brutality of the broken world that they now inhabit. Instead, likely as a coping mechanism, they celebrate it. When they're on the mainland, Jamie says to Spike, if you don't have a mind, you don't have a soul.
The infection takes away their minds. It's got no mind, it's got no soul. Kill it.
And with that mindset, of course, killing the infected is seen as a sport, even though those infected people, they used to be human, they used to have souls, and the humans left on this island seem to have forgotten that. And look guys, I'm not suggesting that the infected are some kind of angels. Yes, they're extremely dangerous, yes, they're violent, but I think their violent nature comes from that very thing, from their nature. It doesn't come from maliciousness, it doesn't come from calculated intent. Didn't something just feel off to you when you saw all those humans celebrating the violence? It just didn't seem right. Sometimes, as we see in 28 Days Later, violence is necessary for survival, but it doesn't mean that it needs to be celebrated. If you're going to kill another living creature, you should do it with respect. As humans, that is what separates us from being animals. Now, major spoiler warning ahead for 28 years later. This now brings us up to the character of Dr. Kelson. Spike learns of this mysterious doctor living out in a dangerous wasteland, a man who used to be a GP who might be capable of curing Spike's mum Isla from a mysterious sickness that seems to be getting worse. At first, it seems crazy that Spike sneaks out into the dangerous wasteland with his sick mum, but when you remember Jamie's words that if you don't have a mind, you don't have a soul, how can you blame Spike for leaving the island? Jamie's mantra seems to have led him to disregard the humanity of his own wife. Yes, she's sick, yes, she's delirious, but she still has a soul, and to suggest otherwise feels cold and inhuman. It seems like Jamie has given up on her and he's waiting for her to die. Dr. Kelson is spoken of by Jamie in hushed tones. Years ago, he watched him line up thousands of bodies on the ground, something that only an insane person would do, right? Or maybe that's just me in Minecraft with different mob heads. But yeah, anyway. When we finally meet Dr. Kelson, a supposed madman, we see he's actually one of the last pockets of sophisticated humanity left in the wasteland. He dedicates his time to memorializing the dead, giving them a proper resting place, the infected and the non-infected alike. He builds bone temples as a tribute to the lives of the dead, their ambitions, a memory that they were once living people, and a reminder that eventually death will come for all of us. In a heart-wrenching finale to the film, we learn that the illness that is affecting Isla is terminal cancer. We watch as Dr. Kelson gives her a peaceful death and gives Spike the opportunity to memorialize her as part of the Bone Temple. The temples serve as more than just a tribute to the dead. They're a reminder that ultimately, in the end, in death, we are back to being just the same, infected and non-infected alike, a pile of skulls. As Dr. Kelson says, memento mori, remember death. In the end, it comes for all of us, and there's no escaping it. Remembering that fact should lead us to live lives of compassion, of mercy, and of care for all living creatures. Often in our world today, especially when we see these conflicts developing overseas, how groups of people have been horribly treated, it seems like so many people in our world forget that, especially our political leaders. I think 28 years later is meant to make us as audience members contemplate the idea of death while we're watching the film. We're meant to be thinking about our own mortality. As I've said before, death unfortunately is all around us. Whether it's in family, in friends, or in a distant land, in a distant conflict, it's something that one day will catch up to all of us. We can choose to inflict it on others or to deny its existence. Often in Western society, it's a taboo topic, or we we can choose to accept it gracefully and use our own mortality as a reminder that can enrich our everyday lives. Humans, animals alike, we're all going to end up as bones one day. And if anything, that is one of the biggest reasons to be kind to one another, no matter what, to be kind to all living things. Because if we don't do that, we lose our souls. 28 days later showed us that people are the real monsters. But 28 years later reminded us that sometimes they're not always as bad as you might think, if you can truly hold on to the noble things that make us human.